Good morning, students. You're welcome to economics class once again. At this period, we'll be looking at the theories of population. So, I want you to sit back and have a nice time with today's lesson. Make sure you pay rapt attention, have your writing materials with you, and take the class with all seriousness. Thank you. A quick revision of previous lesson. In our previous class, we considered the following topics or subtopics. One, concept of underpopulation, overpopulation, and optimum population. There we tried to look at the population size in relation to the available resources and technical know-how and standard of living. And we said the best concept is the optimum population because given the population size, there is possibility to be maximum output or the highest output per head because the population tends to bring about the greatest output per head and increase in standard of living. The two extreme concepts is underpopulation and overpopulation. So below optimal population is underpopulation. That is, the population size is very small compared to the available resources and state of technology. The other side is overpopulation. That is, the population is above optimum population. The population size is greater than the available resources. Both extreme will lead to low standard of living. Thereafter, we consider reasons for high population growth in West Africa due to increase in birth rates, decrease in death rate, and increase in immigration. Number three, we look at how to control population growth in West Africa. And the last concept there or topic was economic implications of rapidly growing population. In today's lesson, we're going to look at the theories of population. Basically, we'll be considering two theories of population. One, Malthusian theory of population, that is the theory being propounded or developed by Thomas Malthus. And two, demographic transaction theory. Malthusian theory of population. You can see the picture of the man there. That is Reverend Thomas Malthus. All right, sit back. Malthusian theory of population. Like I said before, I said this theory was developed by a man, a British man, the first English economist to look into population problem, and his name was Reverend Thomas Malthus. He was the first person to consider or to give a consideration to population or population issue. And in his essay on his book, he tried to look at population in relation to standard of living. Majorly, he compared the population size and the means of subsistence. That is the means of sustenance. That is the food crops or the food production. So we're trying to say that if the population size is far higher or greater than the food production, this will affect the living standard. That is, it will lead to low standard of living. Therefore, in 1792, he published a book on population titled Essay on the Principle of Population as it affects the future improvement of the society. And in this book, he was trying to show four things. Number one, population is limited by the means of subsistence. He was trying to say that the food production, the availability of food, the means of subsistence, the means of survival, especially in relation to food, tends to limit, tends to impede, tends to affect the growth of population. Number two, population increases when the means of subsistence increases, unless prevented by some powerful shocks. Now, here is trying to say that if the means of subsistence increases, that is, if there is an increase or improvements in food production, the available foods are very high in number to meet the needs of the people, then he believed that there is possibility to be increase in population. Number three, he talked about the checks to reduce population size, and he talked about in form of positive and preventive check. Positive check in times of war, in times of crisis, in times of famine and epidemics, like what is happening currently, this COVID-19 pandemic. He believed that this will help to reduce the population size, and the rest population will be able to cope with the means of sustenance. Apart from this, he also talked about the preventive check, that this will also help to reduce high population growth rate. And he talked about in terms of moral restraints, that is late marriages, restraint on marriages, and restraint by married couples or vice and miseries. So this will tend to reduce the population size. Number four, Matters made mention of the fact that it is possible to increase food productivity in arithmetic projection, while the population size increases in geometric projection. That is trying to say that the population tends to outgrow the food production at that particular time. That is, the food production increases in arithmetic projection, e.g., 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, etc. Why the population growth is in geometric projection, e.g., 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. So this was the belief of Reverend Thomas Malthus. And he also believed that the theory is based on law of diminishing return. That is, the output from farmland will decrease as more and more of the poorer lands were brought into cultivation by higher population pressure. Did you understand? However, at the time he wrote the books, certain conditions were prevailing in England, which influenced his theory. What are these conditions that prompted this man to write on population? We have two views or two conditions. One, there was a rapid increase in population while food supply was increasing at a low rate. That is, there was increase in birth rate. There was high birth rate, but the food supply was very low. Two, wages were low while the cost of living was high, and there was suffering especially among those with low income. And that is why he was trying to express his view that there is need to reduce the population growth. Otherwise, the economy will not be able to survive it. If the population continue to grow and there is no improvement or increase in the means of subsistence, there will be serious problem in the nearest future. Before we consider the criticism of this theory, let us just briefly look at the relevance of the Malthusian theory. Malthus' theory has not been totally abandoned. That is, we cannot abandon the theory. Though some people seem to look at him as being pessimistic about the world then and even the future world. But there are some elements of truth in his theory, because his theory can still be applicable or apply rather to what is happening currently. Number two, recently the world has been experiencing the population explosion. In few years back, the world population was around 5 billion, 6 billion, but now if you look at it, it's over 7 billion. And so we can see that what Thomas emphasized then is becoming a reality gradually, though there is still an element of improvement in food production. Number three, there is a serious population in some country of Southeast Asia, like India, and this country is unable to meet the needs of the population, the teeming population. So, which make the country to have a kind of population pressure on available resources, and this is very great, and this has led to serious effort by the country to reduce the population growth so that it will not generate into more population problems. However, greater application of modern technology in India has helped a lot to reduce this population problem. Another point of consideration is that many countries in Africa, even Nigeria inclusive, like Ethiopia, Chad, Niger, are presently having severe food shortages. Although Malthus was very pessimistic, it cannot be said to have been totally wrong, as his theory is applicable to certain parts of the world. Because we can say that his theory is not applicable to advanced country, but if you look at some certain part of the world, his theory is still relevant today and is applicable to some of these parts of the world. So, Malthus' theory is still relevant, especially if you consider the situation some of African country. Have historical events proved matters right or wrong? So let us look at the criticism level against this theory. You must understand that matters base its theory on what, like I said earlier on, what was happening in Britain. But as far as its prediction was concerned, concerning the future, they were not true of Britain and even many other advanced countries. That is, none of his prediction, none of his suggestion, none of his prophecy, so to say, you know, came to pass in Britain or are applicable to many advanced countries. What are the reasons that can be attributed to this? We will discuss 5 reasons briefly. 1. Food production increase as a result of improvement in farming techniques brought about by the Agrarian Revolution. Matters did not foresee agrarian revolution, but as a result of this agrarian revolution, there came about improvements, innovations in farming techniques. And as a result of this helped to increase agricultural production because it has a long-term positive impact on agriculture. And this leads to increasing returns instead of diminishing returns, you know, foresee or foresaw by Thomas. So the advancement in technology helped to increase food production, and this was able to meet the needs or the demands of the teeming population at that time. Number 2, many new lands such as America, New Zealand, Australia, and Africa were open. He did not say this. He thought just about Britain, and because of these new discoveries of new lands, people moved from Britain to these new lands, and this helped to reduce the population over there and help the population, you know, to be sustained by the available food supply. Number 3, there were improvements in the means of transportation, which made it easy for food and raw materials to be transported from the new lands to Europe. So he did not say this as well. And so this new improvement in means of transportation leads to increase in food supply, increase in consumption, and a higher standard of living. Number 4, in Britain, people started having smaller families, not because they fear, is suggestion about positive check or preventive check, but by intention, by their own wish. They just desire to have small families, and this has helped to reduce the growth of population. Number 5, there was advancement in medical science and technology, and this has led to the reduction in the incidence of epidemics, which has brought about loss of many lives in the past. So this has helped to reduce, the death rate, to improve the life of the people, their state of well-being, and their standard of living. So these proofs or reasons have proved Malthus or Malthusian theory to be wrong concerning the most developed or advanced country and even Britain. Did you understand? Thank you. Let us consider the second theory on population, and this has to do with the demographic transition theory. You can see the diagram. It has to do with the phenomenon of population changes in a country over time. That is, it has to deal with different dispensation, different generation, different times based on population changes. In times, basically, in times of birth rate and death rate, and in different era. So this is what this theory is based on. However, this theory provides a historical insight into the population problems of the developing country. You will see that most of the developing country are battling with population explosion. What are the things responsible for this? How did they move from? How did they get to this point? So that is what this demographic transition is trying to explain. Then you need to understand as well that this theory is trying to explain why all the developed countries in contemporary times have passed through the three identified stages of population history. Most of the advanced countries have passed through the three stages of demographic transition theory. So it gives us better understanding how these people were they were able to overcome the challenges then and come to the stage in which they are today. It shows the following consequences of demographic pattern based on population changes which were generally observed in advanced country, and three stages were or are noticed concerning demographic transition history theory. One, we have pre-transition stage. This has to talk about before economic modernization. Two, that is this two has to do with transition stage, that is during modernization, during development has has taken place. When the country is now have moved to the industrial era, or the beginning of industrial era. And stage 3 has to do with post transition. This has to do with what? Post industrial age. So these are the three stages under demographic transition theory. But I want you to notice this fact, or to note this fact rather. That is, when we are talking about demographic, we are looking at population changes in terms of birth rate and death rate. Please take note of this. Let us go back to stage 1, that is pre-industrial phase or pre-transition phase. And this one is characterized by this: the death rate and the birth rate are high and roughly in balance. That is, this era is the era that is referred to as there is before economic modernization. There was no modernization then, there was no development then, there was no advancement then. So it tends to be increase, hike in death rate, and at the same time in birth rate. And this affects the standard of living in this era. Number 2, which was the modernization era, the era in which there was development. And what characterized this era is rapid drop in death rate However, there is still an increase in birth rate. What happened? What is responsible, or what are responsible for this? Is because of modernization. And so because of this modernization, this development, there was an improved public and private health. People now have better diets, higher incomes, and so this leads to increase in life expectancy and reduction in mortality rates. And so you must know that the stage 2 marks the beginning of demographic transition. Number 3, that's stage 3, that is post transition stage. This is very peculiar to the advanced country. And what characterizes this stage is low in birth rates and low in death rates. A good example is Japan. Japan is currently experiencing this. So there was a kind of slowing growing population or no population because of you know advancement, great advancement, great improvement, great modernization. So this has helped this country, to develop at this stage, in the sense that there was reduction in birth rate and reduction in death rates. Did you understand? Thank you. Before we bring the lesson to a close, let us look at the relevance of demographic transition theory. 1. This theory takes a closer look into the history of population. It helps us to understand how a country moved from one stage to another stage. How most of the developed countries move from one stage to another stage, and to have a better history of population changes or demographic transition that exists or existed in some of these countries, both developed and developing country. Number 2, it compares the population growth of developed country with presently developing country. If you look at it, most of the advanced or developed country, they are at stage 3, while developing country at stage 2. So it helps us to compare the population growth of developed countries and developing country. 3. It points out the fact that this country, both developed and developing country, went through stages that are similar. That is, by the time you look at most of the developed countries and that of developing countries, you can see similarities in the stages, in the changes in population size, in the demographic transition. You can see similarities. That is, the developed country went through the same, transition, and the developing country also went through the same transition. So there is similarities. Both countries, experience the same transition. So these are the relevance of demographic transition theory. So in a nutshell, we have tried to look at the theories of population. Basically, we consider two theories: Malthusian theory of population and demographic transition theory. And we said the focus of Malthus or Malthusian theory of population was that population size may outgrow the means of sustenance, and he tried to provide suggestions to reduce population so that the available foods or food production will be sufficient for the teeming population. And demographic, we try to look at the changes in population and how countries move from one stage to another stage. Thank you. Stay safe. If there's any question or for further clarification, you can contact the following GSM on your phone: So sit back to copy the notes that follow after the slides presentation. Thank you. God bless you. Have a nice day. See you next week.